Let's go ahead, though. The next quarterfinals matchup featured Brazil and Argentina. What do we need to know about this one?
Brazil 5, Argentina 1. Didn't look like it was necessarily going to go that way early, but that's where it went. I mean, it's Brazil, Argentina. We got to think Lakers versus Celtics, Yankees versus Red Sox, Cowboys versus 49ers, UEFA versus people who sing mean chants and hurt their feelings. We'll get into that later. But who doesn't like a good rivalry?
Real quick on the rivalry.
Yeah.
USA-Colombia.
Pretty good.
That one's got some mustard on it.
Certainly.
Who is the USA's top rival? I did a little Googling, and it came back Japan, and that just didn't feel right. USA-Mexico didn't look like that.
No.
There was some nastiness in that Colombia matchup.
It might have been the 2015 World Cup. I think some people were referencing this, but I think Lady Andrade from Colombia tried to punch Abby Wambach in the 2015 World Cup. So I think there is some extended bad blood between those sides. Yeah, I mean, the USA, they've just been trampling teams for a long time. I was going to say maybe USA-France, faced each other in World Cup. USA-Netherlands, there was some chippiness.
That's a good one. I like that.
They faced each other in a final. So as far as on this side of the world, I would think it probably is Colombia.
I like it. So
back to this rivalry. I think these two countries, they care about football. I've read some stuff on the internet.
Checks out.
So this is, all jokes aside, this is one of the most historic and rabid rivalry matches available to us in international football. But instead of a fiercely competitive slugfest, we saw Argentina compete in some spots, but Brazil largely outclassed their neighbors to the southwest. Argentina had a golden opportunity when Dalila Ippolito collected an errant back pass from Brazil with the keeper way out of the box. Ippolito had what would be considered maybe like an easy-ish chip because the keeper was so far out.
Yep.
She was about 40 yards out, and she pushed it just to the left. That was probably too early to be like a bad omen for Argentina.
Yeah.
But shit started to get a little hectic for them pretty quickly. In the 19th minute, Levante right back and right midfielder Antonia, she hits a cross all the way across the pitch to Beatriz, who has the opportunity to really just kind of wait for it and get it exactly where she wants, comfortably onto her, I believe it was her left foot. The defender doesn't close her down. She hits a little cross over to Yaya, who's right in the middle, and hits a perfect glancing header past the keeper. 1-0 Brazil, 20 minutes in. Where were you at this point?
Well, love the finish by Yaya. That was pretty awesome.
Very nice.
Generado, like you mentioned, great cross. I thought Argentina hung tough first 15 minutes, obviously scoreless up to that point. But I agree with you. You can kind of see the cracks starting to show a bit with Argentina having trouble keeping possession. And just sort of clearing was an issue for them.
Yes.
Couldn't quite give themselves a chance to breathe, which definitely ended up catching up with them as the match progressed. I want to rewind a little bit. On that Ippolito chip, I wasn't shocked to see Luciana off her line. You mentioned that the chip was from about 40 yards out. Luciana was like 30 yards off her line. She seems to have a little Onana to her game where she'll just do some questionable shit for 4 or 5 times over the course of a match. But I guess at the end of the day, it makes it more entertaining to watch. But, big moments, she does kind of step up. But she makes it more exciting than I think maybe it needs to be. But I don't know. Maybe that's just some of that Brazilian flair. I mean, we're all out here trying to up these ratings, right? So mix it up, Luciana.
There you go. And as an appreciator of Brazilian goalkeepers, Ederson would be A1 right now in my book.
There you go.
Sometimes he's out there in no person's land, and it's just like, what are you doing, buddy? You're scaring the shit out of me a little bit. Luciana definitely comes from that same school. So speaking of excellent first touches, though, Yasmim got on the score sheet after that from the left back position. A rebound falls to her, and she gets on some Roberto Carlos type shit and hits a low, powerful shot into the corner in the 36th minute.
Banger.
We're looking at 2-0, and this was pretty much from 36 minutes to the end of the first half. In hindsight, when I was kind of thinking about the match after I watched it, that was really a preview of what was to come for the rest of the match.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another incredible strike from Yasmim. At this point, it kind of feels like it might be 10 minutes till party time for Brazil and their fans. I think we saw Argentina's best that first 15-ish minutes. Once the second one gets past, and with so much emphasis on it, like that kind of felt like they broke them a little bit.
For sure. And going back to Beatriz Zanerato, I see your name referenced as Beatriz. So I'm going to rock with that for now. Please, anybody, sound off in the comments if I'm off base with that. But speaking of Beatriz, the assist in the first half was not enough for her. So she ended up notching 2 goals in the second half.
Let's go.
With a Gabby Nunes goal sandwiched in between. A nice header from Gabby Nunes to score it. Kind of a walk at that point. I mean, 5-1, that's what you're getting in the second half. I do want to shout out a couple players for Argentina. So credit to Camila Gomez Arez, who saw an opportunity in the 81st minute and hit a lovely cross-pitch pass over to Celeste Dos Santos. That led to Dos Santos running 1v1 with Luciana. I thought Dos Santos had great poise. She hit the chip over Luciana to pull that one back. It was obviously much too little, much too late, but I thought that was a nice piece of skill from Dos Santos.
Oh, yeah.
And I just kind of walked away from the match impressed with Brazil, but not like overly impressed. I mean, if we're going to do like the transitive property here, like, you know, USA beat Argentina 4-0. Brazil beats them by a 4-goal margin. I think if I put on my U.S. women's national team fan hat here for a second, I don't think I'm that scared of Brazil. Like, obviously they have good players. Of course they could challenge USA. I don't think there's really that much to be afraid of. Am I now getting overconfident here?
I'm glad you brought this up. Did you notice in the U.S. match? Sorry to go back to the U.S., but did you notice in the U.S. match where the commentators are like, speaking of the tournament, they're like, winning this, I'm paraphrasing, winning this tournament, you know, it's not the World Cup, but it's not the Olympics, but it is a trophy. And I'm like, whoa. Like, let's chill. Like, you know, we're ahead of Colombia and it's the quarterfinals. There's still so much football to be played. And they're already like sort of saying, yeah, well, we got this trophy. It's not a World Cup, but it's a trophy. I didn't like that at all. Bad juju. Yeah. So we definitely want to stay responsible, keep an open mind with regard to what can come. But I actually agree with you. I wasn't super duper blown away by Brazil.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the semifinals matchups here in a second. But I actually think that the U.S. is the one team that Brazil doesn't want to see because they won't have that opportunity to kind of dance around, have space, you know, have some fun, make weird, funky runs, and just kind of catch us sleeping. I think the U.S. is the worst matchup for Brazil. I actually thought that play that you mentioned from 20-year-old Celeste Dos Santos, I thought that was pretty telling. So Brazil's up 4-0, 10-ish minutes left in the match, 10-ish minutes from keeping a clean sheet. Hurts to say, but the Orlando Pride's Adriana falls completely asleep on that play with Argentina in possession. Dos Santos is out way wide, completely alone. She's like the only one on the left side of the field. And she's like 10 yards onside. She wasn't like right at the cusp. She was like onside by a mile. And after an Argentina throw-in finds its way to Camila Ares, who you also mentioned, pretty routine pass just into acres of space. 2 touches from Dos Santos before her little chippy over the top ruins the shutout. To Brazil's credit, though, Bia Zanerato blows a hole through the side netting for Brazil's 5th goal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th for a little retribution. But if I'm a Brazil fan, I think I'm marking down that lapse of judgment combined with maybe Luciana's early mistake that could have easily put Argentina ahead. And then at that point, you know, who knows where the match goes. You see a lot of 5-1s that are just no doubters. This one was an A-. I'm not going to quite call it a B+. If I'm a fan of Brazil, I think I'd want to see them locked in a little bit more. I understand this is a rivalry, but game was actually pretty clean. It wasn't, you know, as chippy as USA Colombia. But either way, that team waiting for Brazil in the semis, most definitely not a side to be taken lightly. I think we can expect a little bit of physicality when Brazil takes on their next opponent, who we'll talk about here in just a second. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, subscribe. We are covering the sport every week here on Into the Channel, podcast primarily about women's football. Earlier, we covered USA's big 3-0 win over Colombia. Coming up, we will talk about what else we saw in the CONCACAF W Gold Cup quarterfinals, including Mexico versus Paraguay and Canada versus Costa Rica. We will also preview the USA's semifinal matchup against Canada, going down Wednesday, 10:15 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be back again later this week to recap both semifinals matchups and preview the CONCACAF W Gold Cup final, which may just feature this Brazil side, maybe against a resurgent USA. We'll see. So be sure to like if you liked, and subscribe if you love the women's game as much as your boys do, and you want to hang out with us a little bit more.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and, you know, stay tuned because now I'm on the hunt for who our rival is going to be. I'm not going to name any other podcasts yet, but I'm looking. And so, you know, we'll pick somebody and we can just start shit talking them maybe next week. You never know.
What's beef?
We'll see you guys next time.